Wake up in the morning, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I wanna move closer, but I don't control it. I know I've been trying, the door isn't open. I know it sound funny, but really though, in the beginning we really close. Now we just cruising up on the coast. Don't wanna lose you, I really don't. My God, I'm working so hard. I let my guards down and I'm feeling so far. You won't cut me off and I'm ready to grow and I'm ready to know you more. Please, I honestly say I'm mature. It ain't my decision, it's yours. But I will persuade with my arm, cause I'm ready to run to your arms. I just want you to know that I wanna go to a place where I find you, a place I call home, a place where I'm not alone. And maybe I'll grow just a little bit more, and I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. I go back and forth when I feel your presence. I'm above the world. There isn't much better, but then I fall levels and levels below it. Don't know where I'm going, don't know where I'm holding. I say I gave up, but I know I didn't. It's just my frustration, I'm only human. I act like I know what I'm really doing. As long as it's you that I'm really choosing. I will never give up, no, I wanna do it your way. You're the king of the world, only wanna do what you say. I know that it's possible to give back my heart to you. Do it that you choose. I just want you to know that I wanna go to a place where I find you, a place I call home, a place where I'm not alone. And maybe I'll grow just a little bit more, and I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. Then I'll be adored. I know that you love me, I really do. Just wanna do right by you till it's through. Please don't ignore me, please just adore me.
Now, from the MITM Business Consultants comes Man in the Middle, your one-stop shop for financial tips and tricks that big banks and corporate America won't teach you and don't want you to know. Discussing the latest and greatest products, services, skills, and habits to grow and support the financial needs of your business and you. Giving you the knowledge to help make your own important choices for your business and you. Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast. Now, here is your Man in the Middle, with 10 years of experience in the financial and banking industry, Art Abrahamian.
What is going on, everybody? Episode 20.
We're moving.
The big 2-0. It's been like a month.
It has been about a month.
Yeah, man. Let's see. That month we got COVID.
I know you were like, hey, I'm feeling good. I'm like, dude, I just came down with a really bad flu. He's like, oh, I just dealt with this last week.
Yeah, I was like, I went down, and then Payson went down, and then like everybody around us started going down. So we're not down anymore.
We're good.
We're good. Everybody's alive, and want to thank USCCA for sponsoring the channel. And we want to go ahead and watch the video. And we also want to thank Nissim Black for allowing us to use his song "Adored." His info's in the description box. So if you haven't heard his stuff, definitely check it out. He's a great guy. So further ado, we'll go ahead and start with the USCCA ad, and then get straight into it.
It's in our nature to protect the ones we love, to stand up to any danger, to be strong and courageous. to always be prepared, to keep our family safe, to be the first line of defense. We are born to protect.
Let me just hear you say it one more time. It's been a while.
Chills.
Oh man, what are we talking about today?
I'm going to be grilled today.
Oh, you're gonna be grilled today.
So I had a question for you. So I just started my own real estate agent team. I brought on 2 new agents underneath me.
Okay.
And they're doing pretty good. But I've just found that and I'm sure this is a piece with me, and maybe it's a piece with them as well, they're just not as motivated and don't stay on pace as well as I seem to do myself.
Okay, so we're doing a live
live
consult today. Okay. First and foremost, one of the things we've covered, you and I, and in previous podcasts is you can never, and I'm not going to make, and we can do the compliment sandwich thing, right? I'm going to make an excuse for them for the initial point of conversation, but then we'll get into the deeper dive. Can't expect anybody to work as hard as you.
Right.
In your
I know
business.
that part.
It's just not going to happen, and if you come to the table with that expectation, and I'm not just going to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you and through you,
right,
for everybody at home who's wondering the same thing, how to get their, whether it's their friends, their family, their team, whatever it is, that sentiment of how do I get somebody to be like me,
mm-hmm,
and attach the same level of care or appreciation or whatever it may be. You just really can't expect that out of you. Are you for a reason.
mm-hmm.
And if everybody was like you, then it'd be a really difficult time for you because nothing would set you apart. So, to touch base on they're not up to pace with you. Another thing that we tend to not do, and the reason I like to be self-critical in this kind of stuff is because you're the general.
Mm-hmm.
This is your team. You found this team, and this team is a reflection of your management style.
Right.
So perhaps you should take a look at what you're doing and see that maybe you're not as tough on them as you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying you need to beat them.
Yeah.
Results come pretty quick from that, though. Just kidding. But it's not to say that you need to be a complete, mean person to them, but maybe you're too laxed. Maybe nobody takes your methodology of how you do things as serious as you do.
Okay.
And, they may not see that as the same key to success as they would have. So then you really have to ask yourself, are you asking them to just do the job and do it their way if it works for them? Or are you saying, I want it standardized?
Okay.
That was a question.
Oh, I feel like it'd be better if it was standardized.
Okay, and that's fine too. And standardization in how you do things is it's a good thing, because if somebody falls off or if somebody's not there,
Mm-hmm.
That they're on step 3 of 5. It's easy to pick up where they left off. Whereas, like, if you don't know how this person works,
mm-hmm,
where do I start?
Right.
So, if standardization is what you're looking for, then really hitting home the importance of it, and then following through with, well, what happens if they don't do the standardization?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just going to tell them no and spray them with a water bottle like a cat, eventually the water is not going to affect them because they're so used to being sprayed.
Right.
So, you kind of have to find a median of, like, firm but friendly but also professional, because at the end of the day, this is your livelihood. And it's like, if these are your friends, if these are cousins, family, random people that it's one of those things where it's like, you just have to understand that if this is your livelihood, then you have to treat it as such, and that means nobody can affect it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to allow anybody to affect it. So one of the things you have to look at too is, again, you're the general, so you're only as strong as your weakest.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're noticing, and I know you sent me a document, and we'll pull that up on stream so we can go in depth on how you do your strategizing. But one of the things you want to keep in mind is the weakest guy is a reflection of you. Mm-hmm. And the way that you manage your team. Because if he's struggling, again, some people don't learn as quick as others. Some people, it takes them a little bit longer, but when they get it, they really get it, and they're really good at it. One of the things you would want to ask yourself is, what could I do more for the person that's struggling? If you feel like you've exhausted all options, then maybe it's just not for them.
Right.
Because it's one thing, and that's the thing is, what do you do? Okay, so let's take your weakest one out of the two. What are you doing to help him?
I'm checking up with him on a daily basis to see what he's doing specifically.
Okay.
And that's what's nice about that that point system that I have that you said that I sent over to you. I could see what he's doing and what he's not doing, and it's more of just it's just more of checking up. And I mean, he's doing most of the right things, but he's just not doing everything I feel like he needs to be doing if he wants to get to where he'd like to go.
So then the question here, right, and follow-up question for you is, aside from looking at what they're doing, what are you doing to be more proactive rather than reactive?
So I'm trying to create I'm trying to create it more of like a friendly competition in a sense within the group, within the three of us, because there's three of us right now.
Sure.
And then there's also, I have opportunities that come up for me where I haven't even talked to them about this, but I was thinking of doing something like I have a new listing coming up, and I was thinking whoever could show me who has the most points within that week or within 2 weeks then gets to co-list that property with me, which is a big deal. So I don't know if something like that where it's like hey, you hit this milestone or you do this and you beat or you earn something really nice out of it.
Sure.
Because listing for someone, especially both these guys, they've only been, and I think they're both honestly doing great right now for where they're at. They both just started. So one has done 2 transactions, one's done 0 transactions so far. So I think they're both doing great for where they're at. I just know that they can do more. So trying to figure out how to bring that out of them.
Okay. So your plan is good, but one thing to note about your plan is you're incentivizing a winner.
Okay.
Right?
That's why I wasn't sure, right? Because then it's one gets something out of it, but the other doesn't.
And if I'm already
and then that may
struggling,
create resentment.
Right. If I'm already struggling and you're incentivizing a winner, which is fine. I mean, I there's nothing wrong with incentivizing your top employees either. There's nothing wrong with showing your top employees that their hard work is appreciated. There isn't anything wrong with that. I'm not this everyone should get a medal type of guy. I'm just not. There are winners, there are losers. But this isn't a case of winning. This isn't the competition we're talking about. We're talking about your business. For a competition, winning, losing, sure. But for your business, it's not that everybody has to have a medal, but everybody at least has to cross the finish line.
Right.
So your focus is, if you were asked my professional opinion, your focus on the winners and how to get to it. And it's like, yeah, that's cool because I may be driven to want to win. But if there's a hiccup somewhere, then and I don't see it myself and I don't know how to address it, I can't cross that finish line first. That's just what it is.
Right.
You remember when we talked about when the banks would offer products and I told you that I would refuse to sell those products until I understood those products.
Yeah.
I was, even working in a bank, it was very difficult to get the answers I needed. It required a lot of self-learning and self-teaching, but, I was able to find a few people that really helped answer some really key questions. I think what you should be doing with your list, and we'll look at it here after this point I'm making, you should look at this list and find their weaknesses, and you've identified it. Let's say it's like calls or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You should make them come sit in with you and watch you do it.
Okay.
And then watch them do it. And peer-to-peer review is super important.
Okay.
So reviewing them and then grading them. So you set a standard of like 1 through 5s on a categorical scale of like intro, rapport building, how many times they use their name, did they set an appointment, or do they have a follow-up contact?
Okay.
And you grade them on it. And then after they're done, so you watch them make the call, then you write your score down, then you talk to them about it, coach them, and then you have them do another call. And they take the notes from the conversation that you just had, and that's how you build the building blocks of success. Is I can't fix something if I don't know where I'm going wrong.
Right.
And if you're telling me it can be done a better way, then I want you to show me that better way.
Yeah.
not tell me that I could do it better or it could be done this way, that way. Because again, yes, you're giving me the tools, but if you want your team to be successful, you have to get in there with them. That's why you hear people say, I get in the mud. Yeah, I get in the battlefield with my team. It's like you need to get in the battlefield. Take that the weaker of the two and say, listen, here's what I've noticed on our point scale system. I've identified your weakness. I'd like to work on that together. So I'm going to have you, and this is like role playing now, I'm going to have you make a call to a client in front of me. I'm going to go ahead and just evaluate your call. Again, this isn't going to get you in trouble, but I just want you to make the call like you would normally make the call. Great. Guy makes the call. Hello, blah, 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 blah. It's all done. Hangs up the phone. Now you go, okay, great. How do you think that went? What could you have done better? Then you start going over it. So when I evaluate anybody's employees or even my own employees, it's the criteria. Then I'll ask them, how do you feel like you scored on a scale of 1 to 5 on this? Communication. Oh, I scored a 5. Okay, why do you think you scored a 5? Write their answers down. And then at the end of it, you give them your result. Well, I scored you a 3, and here's why. Because the problem is people sometimes think they're good at what they do when they're not. And they think there's no room for improvement. And until you get them to grade themselves so that you can peer-to-peer review and then give them your answer, and, and from there, it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to show you. And then you do a call after that. So, you can do a call after that, let him watch, and then ask him those questions. Did you like something out of there? Did you pick something out that I did? Did you notice that I used their name X amount of times? Yes, yes, yes. And you're like, okay, now I want you to take all of that and make your next call. Okay. And again, it's not going to fix it overnight.
No,
but you're going to notice
it'll start to build.
Right. So let's look at your point system here. Okay, we have it up. And I think you can see that in full screen. Is it coming up there?
Let's see. Yep, it's up.
Cool. So walk me through what we're looking at here and how this point system works.
So essentially, the way it moves through is you pretty much, these are all our basic tasks that we essentially do throughout the day.
Yeah, I get it.
You're supposed to hit 100 points for the week. So
utilizing
all using the points within here to hit 100 points. It doesn't matter necessarily how you hit the 100 points, but you need to hit 100 points.
Okay.
The reason why we need to hit 100 points is because if you could hit 100 points consistently for 3 to 6 months, you will start to average about 3 transactions a month.
Okay.
So there's a direct result from it. The way that you move through it is the two main things that lead into everything else is you have phone calls and open houses. So if you do the phone calls and the open houses, you'll get the database contacts, which will lead to showings, phone conversations, writing offers, getting reviews, getting referrals, everything along those lines as you move down.
Gotcha. I'm actually going to make our screen smaller so we can see this whole thing. Now, is this your?
This is what mine looks like for the week so far.
This is yours.
Yeah.
So some are worth 3, some are worth 1, some are worth 2. CMA, I'm assuming comparative market analysis. Yep. So that if somebody's wanting to buy a house, you're like, well, this is what the house and comps and everything look like in the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
Okay. Coffee conversations. So that's just taking a customer out for coffee. Hey, man, you haven't taken a single person out for coffee this week.
Nope. I was supposed to have one today, but that was that phone call that I had right before this.
Gotcha. So your in-person conversations, you're doing 7. Your phone conversations, you're doing 33. And I know that because you're doing like 100 dials a day. How much are you closing? Are you going to close on this year in real estate?
Probably between 15 and 20 million.
Good for you, dude. Database contact. So what is the database contact?
That's adding new clients to your CRM.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Attend listing appointment. That's just you going to an open house or your
listing
open
appointment?
House?
No, that's me meeting with a new seller.
Okay. So you've accumulated the 100 points. This is Monday through
Thursday.
Monday through Thursday. Okay.
So if I can take a step back from the last, so we've just started doing this for 2 weeks.
Sure.
We're this is the 3rd week. The last 2 weeks, I'm between 135 and 150 points by the end of the week.
Okay.
From Monday through Sunday. The people on my team, they're like 30 to 50 points for the week.
Does your team truly find value in this system?
I guess that's a good question.
Right, because I'm going to get... So, back in the day, we used to have a journal.
Mm-hmm.
This was like supposed to be a banker journal.
Mm-hmm.
I hated, with a passion, this journal.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
But corporate, wanting to standardize everything, I didn't have a choice.
Right.
So one day I got challenged.
Uh-huh.
And I'll never forget this because the scumbags didn't hold up their end of the bargain. But they challenged me and they said, if you can get 45 sales in 1 week, there was like 3 days left in this week, you will never have to touch this binder again. So I did. I got 45 sales that week. And they said, congratulations, awesome job. You still have to do your binder. And ever since then, I would literally come into work and just write the most nonsense about my day ever. Literally like, oh, John Smith. There is no John Smith. Appointment at 2, this at 3, that at 3. Because I didn't care.
Uh-huh.
But that's the thing is when you're doing good and you're being bogged down with nonsense,
Right.
it's not productive
Got
to
it.
that person. But
That makes sense. But if you're not
But
being,
if you're not
being
right.
productive,
that's what I'm saying. Then these are the tools that can definitely get you where you need to be. Perhaps maybe 100 is just too much for them. They're how many weeks into this job?
this is 2 weeks. So here's the problem with what I think. So based on what I know and what I've been told, if you do this correctly, it only takes 25 hours to hit the 100 points.
Sure.
Everyone should be working. They should be working more than 25 hours. within
No,
the
I
week.
agree. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I completely
But
understand.
What you're doing is these are relatively new people. There's a lot to pick up on. There's the
Right.
nuances of the business, how they need to transact. This is only part of an issue, right? This screen that I'm looking at is only part of an underlying issue. You've never actually evaluated how they do any of these things, right? You kind of just have them do it, but you don't go in there and see how do they attend their networking events? How do they act? How do they conversate? How do they do referrals?
Yeah. So the things that I've helped, the things that I'm evaluating is the open houses, their phone calls,
Right.
and then
But how
and their
frequent
social
are
media.
you reviewing their phone calls?
Their phone calls?
Because-
I'm probably an every other day basis.
Okay. But you're not doing the thing we talked about.
No,
where
I'm
you
not
teach.
doing. No,
So
that's where I think that'd be a good step.
I'm not going to tell you not to do this point system, but I am going to tell you to utilize a different thought process of the point system is just point system.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't fix the underlying issue of if they're not doing these things effectively, even with 100 points a week.
Uh-huh.
See, the difference is like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I know I'm confident in you. I know you talk to people well. I know you understand the industry. I know all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody doesn't have the same skill set as you do, especially somebody who's 2 weeks in. You've been doing this three years now.
Yeah.
Your first 2 weeks, you're nowhere where you were today.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
Absolutely.
You get better, you build better, you do better. That's just how the
Right.
natural cause
Yeah.
of things is. This is fine, and I think you should hold them accountable to it if you want, but I think what you need to do is get past this for just right now.
Okay.
There needs to be a point of like molding and training and shaping to the where you, even if they hit their 100 points, here's the thing, because I could BS this to you. You wouldn't really know. There's plenty I could put points in, but I'm cheating myself and I'm cheating you.
Yeah.
The idea is that this should be not a system to be tracked, but a system to show how good I am. Because when I look at these things, that's like something I would be proud of.
That's the way. So the way I take it is two ways. One, the first one is, okay, I want to make sure I'm doing the right things.
Right.
So I look at this constantly throughout the day. And the thing is, I've only had this for 2 weeks too. Before this, I didn't have something
No, I
like
get
this.
it. But you got 3 years more experience
Right.
than they do.
No, I expect myself to do a whole lot more than what I
Sure.
expect them to do.
Great.
I even still don't think I'm at where I want myself to be. I think I need to step up.
Sure, and that's good. The thing is, though, when you set goals, you should ask them, what's a realistic goal for you?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're like 30, I know it sounds like a child could do that, but you need to understand that they're not confident in themselves.
Right.
That's an issue. Your guy should be so confident that they're able to hit this number like it's nothing.
Yeah, I guess that's because the way I've told them to do this, the way that they could break this down pretty easy is by using our dialer. We have a phone dialer.
Sure.
And if they were to make the phone conversations, you can make 100 phone calls in an hour.
Sure. Yeah, I remember doing this too. We used to do 100 dials, or it was like 30 dials a day.
Yeah. So we could do 100 dials in an hour. And you could have 10 phone conversations within that hour, most likely.
Sure.
And then from there, you could probably add 3 to 5 of those as database contacts. So if you have 10 phone conversations and have 3 to 5 database contacts, you're between 13 and 15 points a day.
Sure.
And then both of them sit in open house 5 to 7 days a week. And then because of those open houses, they're also posting between 2 and 4 things on social media every single day. So if they were to just do those things, they hit 100 points.
I get that, but your focus is too much on a point system. Again, the point system is designed, there's a lot behind it where the employees who are struggling because of an internal reason.
Yeah.
Your goal...
Well, and the reason... Okay, so the reason why they're not making the phone calls is because they're scared to make the phone calls.
That's what I'm saying. So it's easy. These systems are easy when you're confident. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm telling you, ask them what their expectation of themselves should be.
Okay.
Because the number they give you is going to reflect the level of confidence they have in themselves.
I gotcha.
And if you're at 150 and they're at 30, that tells you something. Mm-hmm. It means they're so uncertain of what they're doing that they need a little bit more attention. Why do you think you're going to only commit to 30? Mm-hmm. Well, because I just feel like I'm just not getting it. Okay, what are you not getting?
Okay.
Again, it's not to make an excuse for them, but I'm also telling you that if you're trying to be the leader that you want to be and you want to build this company up the way you want it to be, it's going to require some additional attention.
Of course.
Otherwise, you're going to have to be offering. If you're trying to bring in somebody of your caliber, it's got to be worth it for them.
Of course.
And if you're not able to give them that right now, then you have to bring in who's willing to grow with you. And that's great. But, but you also have to understand that you're the most experienced person in that office.
Right.
So it's your responsibility as an owner and as the lead of this team to ensure that nobody falls behind. And
Gotcha.
The only way you can do that is by asking where they're struggling and then attempt to help them. Now, after you've done that, after you've spent countless times and they're still struggling, then maybe it's just not for them.
Gotcha.
But you can't say that it's not for them just quite yet because you haven't dived deep enough into the core problem, right? And this is something to keep in mind, and this is for more of the people listening at home, is face value problems are not the same thing as a core issue. You see something at face value, and you think that this is the underlying issue. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's this person's attitude. Well, yeah, okay, fine. Their attitude may not be good, but there's a deeper dive into why is this happening this way? What caused this attitude? Maybe this person has an issue with this customer because this customer and him have a past. Okay, so then how do we circumvent that? Mm-hmm. We're going to switch who's dealing with this customer, right? Mm-hmm. There's alternative options to everything that you do. And the real question that you need to ask yourself is, how much do you care to do it? Because if you're just worried about, we're good on this list, by the way?
Yeah, we're good.
If your concern is strictly and solely the outcome, then you're going to be going through employees left and right, left and right, left and right, left and right. Now, I'm all for you giving the best performers incentives because I don't believe that everybody should be incentivized. And I have a friend who has a company, had a company, and he would buy lunch for everybody every week. And one day we were at dinner and I asked him, why do you do that? Because his turnover rates were ridiculous. He was firing people within the first 2 weeks because his rule was like, if you don't sell within 2 weeks, you're out. Mm-hmm. But then again, it's like you haven't even given them enough time to really deep dive and invest into them because they've only been doing this for 2 weeks. You can't expect somebody to just walk in. I mean, that's why when you get a job, most places, you're in training for a month and a half.
Right.
And even when you're in training for a month and a half, all you're learning is conceptualization and product knowledge. Mm-hmm. They're not actually teaching you how to find your groove, how to find the way that you should make it work. So anyways, this guy would say, that he incentivizes his employees to come into work, and he would pay every Wednesday or Thursday for their meal. So it's costing him $60, $70 every week to reward people who aren't even going to be there for the next week. And I asked him one simple question. I said, do you have people that have been there longer than 2 weeks? Yeah, I've got 2 people that have been around since day one. And what do they do? Well, they're my best salesmen, right? They're my most consistent salesmen. Cool. So how do you incentivize them? Well, they get the food every week. I said, right, but they're the best. And these guys who just started, who you're going to let go in 2 weeks because they're not capable of doing the job,
are also getting the food.
So
what are actually the best guys getting?
Right. So now the way I see it is I'm not incentivizing my best employees, and my best employees could potentially grow to resent that.
Right.
Why does everybody get to enjoy this? I'm busting my ass over here. He's busting his ass over here.
Yeah, why do the new guys
new guys get to enjoy this?
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's like competition is great. It creates a level of fun at the office, camaraderie, where it's like,
and I guess it only works for certain people,
right?
Too.
Right.
Like,
but other people are stressed out by that.
Yeah.
They feel the pressure from it. So as opposed to making it known that it's a competition, you should just treat them as such. And what's going to end up happening, and this is more like subtlety is the best show of working hard gets you somewhere, is instead of putting pressure on people and saying whoever sells the most gets this, okay, say nothing. And as you review the charts, you bring that person in, you say, hey man, I want to, more personal, I want to thank you for your performance. You've outperformed every week consistently for the last 4 weeks. So what I'm going to do for you, because you're my top performer right now, is I'm going to bring you in on this deal so you can split commissions with me. I'm going to bring you some lunch. Coffee's on me today. Again, don't want to have to go extravagant. You don't want to spoil them every day either, because there's got to be a balance. But rather than putting, a steak in front of 2 starving dogs, you reward the best one, and you say, hey, privately. And what's going to end up happening is this. The other one's going to notice why this is happening. And they might ask the question, not to you directly, but they'll ask it to, hey, how come you keep getting all this stuff? And he's like, dude, because the more I hit my numbers and every time I perform, he keeps taking care of me. So now it can't be this like, oh, I wish I was that good. It's a favoritism thing. It's like, no, it's the numbers.
It's just the numbers. Okay. Makes a lot more sense.
Right, because as your team grows and you go from 3 to 7 to 10 to 12 to 15, you're going to find that quiet incentives are a lot louder than louder incentives. Because quiet incentives go around because people automatically notice, oh, he's with the boss more. Oh, he's getting all these deals. And then you instead of saying, I want to talk to you guys about this, and that, you give them a little spotlight. When you have a bigger team and you're doing company meetings or team meetings, let's take a minute and give Payson a round of applause. He's crushed his numbers for the week. Good job, Payson. Blah, 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 blah. See me in my office for your reward. Done. Not this like, it's one of those things where it's like there's subtle changes, but I feel like one, it's going to make the future of what you're doing much more performance-based and less ego-based. Because that's another big problem is when you start having egos in the office, where it's like subtlety is the best policy in this situation. But then also it's going to make you grow too, because it's easy I could point out a million things about half the people that come here and do stuff and people that do stuff with us and what they're doing wrong, but that's neither here nor there. There's a reason I can point that out and you can point that out, because we do this for a living every day, all day. We live, and breathe this stuff. So for us, it's like I look at it, you look at it, we know what's the issue in our respective fields. Those guys aren't like that, so we can't expect them to be like that, but we do have a sense of obligation as the leaders, as the owners, as the most educated ones in that field amongst who's working with us and for us, to teach. Because if we expect them to learn it like the way we did, all it's doing is hurting our business.
Yeah. I guess that's the problem too, because like when I started, I didn't have anyone to tell me anything at all,
And that's why you've done so well.
and I just hopped on the phone and I just figured it out over time.
Right, but that over time, that's the thing, right? You figured it out over time. You're not trying to give these guys 3 years to figure it out over time because this is your business now.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the thing is I'm with the phone calls, I'm not expecting them to convert like at a certain percentage.
Yeah, no,
right
I get it.
It's more of just making the calls, but that's
making
where we need
the
to go
call,
back and
right?
figure out
Because
why they're
making
not
the call
exactly-
is the issue.
Yeah.
It's not even landing the deal. It's making the call
call.
is already scaring them from doing it.
Yeah.
They're afraid when they get somebody who goes, "Why are you calling me?" Click.
Yeah.
And then it ruins their whole mood. And it's like you can't. That's an issue that has to be worked through and worked out.
Right.
Because otherwise they're just not cut for this field. If you can't handle rejection over the phone, 99% of sales jobs are not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just what it is.
Well, and this is not for them, but like what's nice about our job is if you do that type of stuff in the beginning, the calls, eventually you don't have to sit every day and make phone calls.
Sure, because
like now
those will
I'm at
convert.
the point. Now I'm at the point where I don't need to sit every day and make 100 to 500 phone calls. I have so much stuff going on that if I can, I make time to make it, but like I usually don't even have the time to sit down and make those 300 cold calls. Like
And that's how this industry, even our industry, is like that. You know, it works like that. In the beginning, you're desperate to find business, and towards the end, you don't have time to fit people into the schedule.
Yeah.
We went to lunch today. You saw me book like 7 new deals and new clients. I forgot what I was charging people because it's so many different people at the same time. That naturally comes with time and experience, because the more people you help, the more people they tell, the more people you help, the more people hear about it. The more people you help, the more people see your name and face everywhere. These are new guys. These are just the guppies in a shark tank. And it's like, you know, you need to be the shark that says, follow me, and I'll navigate the waters with you.
Right.
Because otherwise, you're expecting them to be sharks like you, but it's probably going to take as long as it took you. And you don't want to wait 3 years for them to start doing good, because that affects your bottom dollar at the end of the day. So taking your knowledge, because at the end of the day, I say this all the time, I can teach you everything about what I do. I'm not afraid about that.
Yeah.
This like trade industry secret nonsense garbage,
There's
it doesn't
no
mean
action,
anything. Because at the end of the day, it's how you do it. And
well, because everyone has their own style.
Right.
Everyone's going to have their own like type of person that's going to be the ideal person for them to work with.
right.
Like I'm not going to be able to probably have the same I'm not going to be able to have the same conversation as you would with the same exact person if we were
Right.
both in the same or two different rooms.
Even if I
talking to that
tell
person.
you everything about what it is that thing is, you're still be like, not my strong suit. I'm going to stick to what I know.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's, you know, I that's why I've never been one to be like, oh, I can't let this person know how to do it. And to me, that's useless, because even if I tell you how to do it, it's still going to take time and effort to master. So at that point, you're investing in your own business and you're investing into your team. And the way you're doing that is by expediting the process.
Right.
Instead of them taking 3 years to learn it, you're saying, hey, this is how you do it. It's the same concept. Like when you eventually have a kid, it's the same thing, right? Like parents always say, I'm trying to tell them so they don't make the same mistake I did. Well, it's the same thing. Naturally, they usually end up making the same mistake anyways.
yeah.
But the point is, what is the premise of that conversation, that sentence, right? I'm trying to teach them so they don't make the same mistake I did.
Yeah.
Teach them so they don't make the same mistake you did.
Okay.
And if they choose to go their path and make continuous amounts of mistake, then you punish them for it. And again, beating them works, but I don't think it's legal in many states, especially not this one. So you just tell them, I'm going to have to write you up because you're not meeting goals. You know, it's one thing if you're day one, you don't meet your goals. Hey, I'm going to work with you. 2 weeks is still pretty fresh. But if we're a month out, I think the next 2 weeks you should invest some more time into the staff and just try that and see if their performance doesn't go up. Then at this point, you've done everything you can do. And it's not saying you give up on them, but they need to be more proactive. And then you tell them, listen, I'm now done teaching. If you want additional help, you need to come to me. But if they continue not to do it, then at this point, it's like it's time to start evaluating. All right, here's your write-up. Here's your warning. The next one, you're out. Because it just might not be for them.
Right.
And that's okay, too.
Yeah.
because you don't need to drag a dead horse around with you the entire way either.
Yeah.
Just because you're trying to get to the top, there's no point in taking dead weight with you.
Right.
And it's not to talk trash on them. I'm sure they're trying their best, but it's not for everyone.
No.
I can't be a professional basketball player. There's no way. I'm not tall enough. That's the first problem. There's a plethora of problems why I can't be a professional basketball player. But the height thing already is like,
That's already.
yeah, maybe crochet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Golf, maybe. There's no height requirement there. But the point being is like, at some point you have to know what you can and can't do and what you are and aren't capable of. So, that would be my putting the bow on this thing and saying that's what I think. And actually, in 2 weeks, I'd like for us to touch base on this topic again.
Be a good idea.
And see
Where they're at.
what you learned about your staff that you normally wouldn't have learned if you didn't put the time into it, how they're doing in comparison to what they were doing, and how you think that methodology went for the 2 weeks that you're going to try it. So if you can commit to doing that for just the 2 weeks, and even if you want to write notes and bring them back, and we'll go over it, because I want to see how that goes.
Okay.
I feel like I think it'll help.
I think it'll help too.
Because putting attention into something has never not helped.
Yeah, for sure.
But anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Awesome.
We'll come back in 2 weeks and there'll be more.
Well, we'll be back next week for the next podcast. But 2 weeks
we'll continue the topic.
To continue this topic, because I genuinely want to see this one to be continued and see what Payson can bring to the table with what he's learned and what his staff is doing. And I hope you guys book another $10 million after this 2 weeks.
That'd be sweet.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in. We want to thank the USCCA for being a sponsor. We also want to thank Nissim Black once again. If you like the song that we played in the beginning, check it out in the description below. And before we go, we're going to play out that USCCA advertisement. And if you want to know more, click the link in the description below. All right, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Have a good one.
It's in our nature to protect the ones we love, to stand up to any danger, to be strong and courageous, to always be prepared, to keep our family safe, to be the first line of defense. We are born to protect.
Thanks for listening to Man in the Middle. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing to the show. If you can't wait till next episode, follow us on Instagram at MITM Business Consulting and online at mitm.services. There, you can learn more about what we do, how we can help, and the custom services we offer around your personal needs. Until next time, if you'd like to choose the topic we discuss and receive additional services, consider joining our membership program at mitm.services. Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast. We look forward to you tuning in next time.